Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The History Squad. Now, today's video is about the rank structure in a medieval army, particularly the 100 Years' War, which is what we've been covering. Now, this is in response to a question from one of my subscribers. Now, before I go into the rank structure of the army, we've got to go back a little bit and cover the feudal system, as this is important as to the rank structure later on. So let's have a look at the feudal system. Now, the feudal system was imposed on my ancestors. 1066, Battle of Hastings. The Saxon army, which had been very busy defeating Vikings, was now defeated in turn by the invading army of William the Conqueror, the Normans, or if you like, the French. They imposed the feudal system upon my ancestors. So have a listen to this. They stole the land, England, my language, Saxon, gone. My religion, gone. Everything changed. The feudal system. So the king's at the top. He owns all of the land, all of England. He's going to keep 20% for himself. He's going to lease 25% to the church. They can build their monasteries, their cathedrals. It's how the creeping power of the Norman church oversaw the Saxon churches. The barons, these are these real powerful noblemen. 55% of the king's land was leased to these barons, these noblemen. Now, in turn, both the church and the barons could sublet. And the barons would sublet to knights, the church to artisans, or to smaller monasteries, that kind of thing. But at the very bottom of it, you have peasants who will work the land for the knights. In return, the knights will protect them. The peasants will then supply food and manpower in time of war to the knights, who will then return their service to the barons who are serving the king. That's the way it works. It's nice, isn't it? The king has his land. He is protected. The barons have their land. They're protected. The knights have their land. They're protected. But the peasants don't own the land. They just work it. And then produce is sent back up the line to the knights. This is a form of taxation, isn't it? But I needed to go through this feudal system quite briefly because it reflects on how armies were commanded at the time of the 100 Years' War. No longer could they just gather up peasants because warfare had changed. There was a big difference in the armies of the 100 Years' War for the English, and it was those bowmen. They really meant something, and they had to be commanded, and they had to be commanded right. So, the rank structure. Now, remember that bit I told you about the feudal system? It all starts with the king. I've got a king here, my little Henry V. Now, he will, of course, be in overall charge of his army. Now, an English army, 100 Years' War, typically have three parts. The vanguard at the front, the main or mid-guard in the middle, and the rear guard. Now, the middle guard, or the main, is commanded by the king. But don't forget, he's in overall charge. Now, he will have his Earl Constable and his Earl Marshals, and one of those will command the vanguard and the rear guard. But also, there's a constable, I've got one here, magnificent on his horse, will be in charge of the cavalry. So this all comes from the feudal system, but it's when you get a little bit further down the line and you get amongst the troops. So how do you control them? And I'll tell you, they did. Discipline, right? Now, as an ex-soldier, I'll tell you, discipline, it's so important. In medieval times, you look at the Battle of Agincourt. Those troops soaking wet and all different kinds of conditions faced by an enormous French army, which should be wiping them out. And yet they had the discipline to hammer in their stakes, sharpen them, bring the arrows down, then move the entire army forward and not run away when the French charged. You look at the Battle of Crécy, the entire English army, all three divisions, was actually lying down. They'd had their meal, and then the French army appear on the battlefield. The entire English army rise up in their positions. Now that's discipline. Now there was a later battle, Villeneuve, it's going to be one of mine later, where an English army was really in big trouble. The French had got them, and they charged with their heavy cavalry. So this English army, this disciplined army, the bowmen simply got out the way of the cavalry. The men-at-arms and knights lay down or made lanes for the cavalry to charge through, then stood up and engaged the French, pretty much destroying their army. By the time the French cavalry had come back, they couldn't get anywhere because they were facing now a very angry English army. Discipline. And it's how they maintain their discipline. Now, when I first joined the army, infantryman, a rifle section, then you're in your platoon, then you're in your company. It's very similar. 20 men. Now, I've got 20 bowmen here. 20 men are actually commanded by a vintner. Right? Now, there he is. Now, your next one, so you got a vintner, that's a vingtaine. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vingtaines, right? That's 100 men. So you will have a centenar in charge of all of these. But then when you get up to 1,000 men, they're commanded by a millenare. So a millenare, under him, has 10 centenars, and each centenar has 5 vingtenaires. So I suppose if you looked at it as in the modern British Army, the millenare is the regimental sergeant major. Underneath him, of course, he has his sergeants, and then your corporals and lance corporals. It was very similar in a medieval army. It seems to have followed through a little bit in the rank structure, but it was very effective. The men close in could organize their little companies and move them around the battlefield as required. Now, there's an extra little thing here. If a nobleman, a knight, brings his own retinue of soldiers, they're his own men, they wear his livery, they still have to fall in with the different command structure. They can't just be on the battlefield. So the English army, well and truly commanded from the top, then his Earl Marshals, Earl Constables, right the way down, millenare, right the way down to centenar and the vintner. This is the rank structure, pretty much in a nutshell, Battle of Agincourt time. Well, I hope you found that film interesting. I did, lots of research. I hope I got everything right. So if you did enjoy it, like, share and subscribe. And don't forget, turn on the notification button and you'll know what's coming on down the line. We're going to shoot the How to Raise a Medieval Army next, so you'll see when that's coming on. But before I go, a quick shout out to some of my Patreon members, David Strother, Joey Baker and Mark Wright. Hey guys, thanks a bunch. Bye for now.